moved into project management, then across from there to engineering. And then when I moved back to the UK in 2017, I moved into cybersecurity as a Pacific domain.
Fantastic.
So was there another question on top of that, or I think that's
no, that's great. Great that you can do that introduction in terms to what you've done. You've also done the sort of the Coursera content, the data analyst content. Is that correct?
Yes. So I did that. I think it was at closer to the start of this year. So I have a number of certifications that require continual professional development, and that was on Coursera, and I decided to have a go at it and see how it was. So I'm able to comment around that as well.
Fantastic. So we have one learner who actually has had experience of both the cyber analyst and the data analyst content on Coursera. All of the other individuals are undertaking the cyber analyst Jumpstart learning in that respect. Can you also sort of give an introduction to your organization as well, please?
Sure. So Bosch is the company that is most well known, I think, probably for its white goods, coffee machines, fridges, washing machines. But it actually started much further back than that, and the majority of its work is around producing components for cars. While it has a number of subsidiaries in the UK, including companies like Bosch Boilers, which are based out of Worcester. I work for the BoschCompare subsidiary, which is a unit that does a mix of consultancy and providing architectural designs and RFQs and the purchasing process for cybersecurity tools for other organizations. And it developed out of Bosch's own internal processes, where they were obviously trying to implement controls to manage security risks that they saw.
Okay, fantastic. And sort of the different cyber roles then that you've undertaken, and sort of the skills and qualifications that you found that you've needed.
Yes, so it's been an interesting one. As I mentioned, the majority of my career actually prior to cybersecurity was as either as a R&D engineer, a developer, and more generic kind of networking. When I moved back to the UK, I decided I was switching careers to something I thought might be a little bit more interesting. So I initially started out as a data protection officer, switched across from data protection to consultancy and penetration testing. Then from penetration testing, I moved across to cybersecurity management role. Specifically, that was a mix of engineering and SOC work. And then from there, I've moved across to architecture at Bosch UK. So I've kind of done almost the entire gamut from the softer skill side with risk assessments, data protection, all the way through the kind of harder skills, and now onto that kind of more management analytic stuff.
Excellent. And in terms of, you talked there about sort of the continuous personal development that you do, obviously some of that is required as part of your role, but you also then would do sort of external reading yourself in terms of upskilling. Have you any advice or guidance to give to our learners in terms of what they should be looking for and where they should be reaching?
I think that's a tricky one. Really, it depends what you want to do in cybersecurity. I mean, like with any subject, it's really, really broad. There's anything all the way from the legal side through to risk assessments, through to auditing, through to engineering, through to penetration testing, through to the analytics side. And really do the things that you find interesting, and the rest will follow. If you find and pick on one topic point that you find interesting, as you read around it, the other skills that you need associated with that will come. There's a lot of background research and reading. Where to start? Well, any course is a good starting point, but just use it as a roadmap would be my advice. See what kind of subjects they're talking about, and then go out and start looking at the books that are involved. And YouTube can be your friend in this. There's lots and lots of people producing pretty good technical videos, but again, with a hint of caution with that, never take what someone says at face value. Go off and do the research yourself and test it, and try to do it in a safe environment just in case.
Fantastic. And in terms of qualifications, what advice would you give in terms of individuals, ex-military individuals looking to get into cyber? What qualifications would you suggest?
So I guess there are two or several different trains of thoughts on this. The first one is that qualifications matter, mainly because when you've got them on your CV, if someone is scanning a CV for a minimum requirement set, you hit that benchmark, which will get you into the interview. If you are just looking for something generic, where ultimately it's a junior level cybersecurity role, what I think most employers tend to look for are those kind of more generic ones, like your CompTIA Network Plus or some kind of Cisco CCNA, something IT generic, because they often figure that the cybersecurity skills will come with that on top, something that you can choose. If, however, you're looking to move into something a little bit more specialized, like penetration testing, my advice is get the appropriate certifications for that. Generally, most people look at something like an OSCP, the offensive security training tracks, or something CREST related with that, so like a CRT. Generally, these are required just because the companies that you're working for, if it's as an external consultant, they have no way of knowing if you're good or not. So they're looking for some kind of medium point just to say, well, you're obviously able to pass that test, you have a baseline somewhere. If you're thinking of going along an audit track, so IT audit or cybersecurity audit for something like one of the big four or one of the big 10, go for something like the Osaka CISA, the Certified Information Systems Auditor track, or think about something like an ISO 27001 lead auditor kind of certification, as generally that's what they look for within their CV kind of set that comes through. If you're going in-house and you have experience, generally I've found that very few organizations actually care what your certifications are. Mostly it comes down to, do you have the experience? Do they like your interview? When they ask questions, do you know the answers? It's a bit of a mix, I'm afraid.
Okay, no, that's fine. And in terms of, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that most of the people on here, if I understand it correctly, come from a military background. So you've already got a head start in that a lot of employers are looking for some kind of work experience and transferable skills that can come across. Highlight those transferable skills. If you've got a tech background, highlight it. If you don't have a tech background and you're not looking for tech work, but you're looking for risk management, again, highlight where you've been involved in identifying and managing risk. And lastly, with all of these things, learn the language. The way that people speak, you hear like particular buzzwords, understand what they mean and why you may choose not to use them. At least understand them, so when someone says something, it sounds like at least you are up on the subject.
Fabulous. And in terms of, you referenced their sort of military skills and talked about technical skills, what other military skills have you found to be most valuable, either sort of individually or sort of to your employer?
I think that's a bit of a tricky question. I don't think any two sets of military skills are probably the same. I mean, sure, there's some baselines, but I think they're applicable to any job. It's like the ability to get out of bed and get up on work on time, being reliable. Otherwise, it's just highlight the things that you've done, on an individual basis that you think are applicable for the job. I mean, when you go for a job, read through what the job description is, and if they're asking for something, if you think you can do it, reference it from your own anecdotal experience. So if an employer, for example, says that they're looking for someone who can assess risk, and you've used the risk assessment methodology, whatever it is, STRIDE, PASTA, however it goes, highlight it. If you've got network experience, they're looking for someone who can secure a network, highlight it, explain what you understand about telecommunications, for example. If you don't have the skills, then obviously maybe you consider not applying for the job. But generally, those military skills are those background skills that they're looking for in addition that often aren't mentioned, but highlight them anyway, as it does put you perhaps a little bit above someone who's also going for a first-time job, as you've got proven experience at working and being able to manage your own time, work with other people, communicate, having a bit of discipline, etc.
Brilliant. And in terms of having been through the data analyst course yourself through IBM, what sort of advice would you give individuals completing the course now and once they've completed it, sort of next steps?
So I'd say the key advantage of the IBM course is actually not around the theoretical stuff they put through. So if you go through it, you probably find that the course is a Frankenstein of different webinars, of people talking about specific topics. And it's a good introductory starting point, but I personally wouldn't use those videos as a basis for learning. What actually is really important is the Coursera sends you and has links to the IBM demo sites. It's like a, I suppose, an assault course or a practice course or some kind of, I'm not sure how I'd describe it, but it's basically a set up an environment where you can learn to use like their own SIEM system or their own tools. And really, I think that's what's important, is taking the time to practice those tools against the kind of written material they put in with the course. You know, take the time to practice, as often what you might find, particularly if you're going for a first-time job, is your employer might actually have something similar where to test that you can actually do what you say. They might put you through something similar. If you've done it, at least you know how the tools work, or you can highlight you've got experience with it.
Fantastic. And in terms of your journey then, did you undertake any sort of placements or did you sort of then root straight into employment? What was your sort of path?
I'm not entirely sure that my path is actually
The one to follow.
Something that's valid. I started back in 1994. So I started at a time when IT was sort of like something quite new for most people, and there weren't enough people. I literally went out, I think it was at probably 18, and got my Microsoft certifications at the time they were called for NT3, and then got a contract job. And then from there, it was just an escalating path. You know, I went to university, did work part-time, left university, got a full-time job. So it wasn't really placements for me. I went straight into full-time employment. I just went through at a time when there was a niche market role. I think what I've seen today, and what might be more applicable for people, is consider again also that point. This is a time period when employers are lacking staff, particularly in short-term intervals. Look for like 3-month paid employment, 6-month paid employment contracts. Don't be afraid to jump around. I know there's this kind of myth in IT that if you stay at a place for a long time, it will help you advance as a career. Truth is, the fastest way up the ladder is actually contracting before you move into a consultancy role and then switch to another job and then switch to another job. You know, don't be afraid to jump around. I found most companies actually don't mind. In fact, they kind of expect it. As long as you're willing to put 2 years in, if it's a full-time role, or do the full length of the contract and see the project through, that's really all they expect. But again,
excellent.
be careful. That's my anecdotal experience.
Useful experience though, which is great. Thank you. Any other, before I sort of open up to others to ask any questions, any other sort of advice or guidance that you think we should be giving, or that, you know, learners need to have at this point?
Yes. So a lot of this is around a mindset when you think of cybersecurity, regardless if you're talking about doing risk assessments, data protection with some kind of legal basis, like perhaps GDPR or the Data Protection Act. There's a lot of reading and a lot of research to be involved. You know, keep abreast of what future events are on the horizon, what kind of technology is coming out, what are the current market trends, and identify tools that people use, and then learn how to use those tools. Often you'll find that, for example, Microsoft is quite a popular tool set. People often use the Azure cloud environment or the Microsoft 365 environment. And you'll find that Microsoft offers free developer accounts to people that you can sign up for, so you can get complete access to their systems with dummy data in it. So you can practice, you can see how it works, understand how it works, so you can feel, you know, confident and comfortable. Also, most of the companies that have these tools provide free training. Mostly it's like written documents, but don't be afraid to read them, understand what they are, and go on to forums and ask the questions. I mean, Stack Overflow and Reddit are going to be your two closest friends when it comes to learning. Stack Overflow particularly. If someone has done it, Google search will find it.
Brilliant, thank you. Andrew, do you have any questions for Kyne before I open up to the delegates? Andrew may not be with us, he is in transit. So if any of our learners who are listening today, you are. Any questions, Andrew, before I open up to the learners?
No, nothing from me. That was very helpful, Kyne. Thank you.
If any of the learners who are on today, if you want to type out any of your questions that you have for Kyne, that would be great. And then we can feed them through. It's a bit more difficult if we sort of open up everybody off mute. So it's probably easier if we just take those messages through the chat function. And then I will relay them to Kyne, and he can offer his insight on those. So I'll wait a couple of moments for any questions that may come through. And if you don't have any questions, then please just let us know. That would be great. No questions coming just yet.
One thing that's probably also worth identifying is most regions have something called a cyber cluster. I'd recommend that, again, if people are looking at reaching out and making contacts within the cybersecurity industry, it's worth identifying what your local cluster is and reaching out and trying to make contact, because they're useful staging points for contacting potential employers or other people who might be in a similar situation to you.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just reading at the questions here. Question from Rob. Hi, Kyne, thanks for your insights. I'm interested in G or C. What courses might cover that from a management perspective?
Okay, so governance, risk and control. So depending on where you want to go with that, some really nice, easy benchmark courses to look at are the Osaka, again, CISA is a pretty good one. While it's an auditing course, generally it teaches how to audit governance, risk and control frameworks of some description. They do another one called C-Risk, which again focuses on the risk aspect. And then you've got your usual suspects, the CISSP from ICS squared, I think it is, and the CISM. Now, most of these have a work experience kind of criteria to get the certifications, but you can still do the exam and be pre-qualified and use that and say that you're looking for the experience when you move into this kind of area. Again, other things I'd recommend is understanding the Data Protection Act. The British Computer Society has a pair of courses that are worth doing around data protection. Trying to think of other areas. Otherwise, you've got all for GRC, you generally actually have all of your normal suspects of non-cybersecurity related jobs, certifications that you can look at as well, like academic ones being your MBAs or your business analyst kind of courses and degrees or certifications. C-Risk I have mentioned prior, that was the CISA, the Certified Information Systems Auditor. And as I said, the British Computer Society has a fair number that you might want to look at. If you're also interested in ISMS, Information Security Management Systems, or like ISO 27001, you might want to consider some of the courses from BSI or doing a lead auditor or an internal auditor course on those. They're fairly useful, and I have to say that ISO 27001 lead auditor tends to be something of a unicorn that a lot of companies look for, because it's such a useful qualification for both internal and external auditors to have, or even just people building some kind of management system. Ironically, another thing just to keep in mind is that a lot of the Big Four and Big 10 auditing firms, when they do employment for cybersecurity or technology risk assurance candidates in their remit, they also look at things like the Certified Internal Auditor, the CIA course, or things like the ACCA and the ACA. So I know it's like being an accountant effectively, or an auditor of that description. They really are used by a lot of cybersecurity auditors, so worth keeping those in mind.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions then from anyone joining? Rob, I'm glad that answered your question. We'll wait for a couple more minutes to see if there are any other questions. I know we have a number of individuals who will probably be accessing this after the event through the recording. So we will collect questions as well from that.
Sure.
That will probably come through directly to myself.
I would recommend considering as well, if you're looking at free courses and things that are quite helpful, Cisco have a thing called Net Academy, and that offers a fair number of free courses, both for programming, so you can learn Python on it, and it gives access to virtualization software that allows you to construct Cisco networks, so you can actually have a look again at how they would work, and you can play around and teach yourself how to use them. On top of that, as I said, they do a number of other courses. If you're going down a technical path, also consider learning some operating systems. Linux is one of your key friends here, and you might want to look at the Linux Foundation, I think it's called. Let me just double check that. Yes, the Linux Foundation is a non-profit open source. They have a large number of courses that are free and available through both Coursera and edX. So again, if you want to use those as a platform, that's good, or you can go through the platform from Linux Foundation itself. Keep in mind that a lot of organizations, particularly if you want to get into the finance industry, use open source systems, and so they're well worth understanding. And if for nothing else, again, for containerization, learn Docker, learn Kubernetes. They are skills that will hold you in good stead when you go into cybersecurity or just IT in general. But again, I would also recommend learning at least one programming language if you can, and Python is a very easy one to learn.
Thank you, Kyne. That's really, really helpful. Any other questions for Kyne with regards to the technical qualifications or experience that he's gone through? John, I have seen your question with regards to exam vouchers. I will come back to you on that if that's okay. Mark has asked in terms of sites that were mentioned. Kyne, could you just go through some more of those sites again, if you wouldn't mind? Mark, I will come back to you on that and provide you information on email. Kyne, have we still got you with us? Not sure.
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's no problem.
So Cisco Net Academy is the one you want to look for. I'll post the link here.
Thank you.
I think I can post. So consider this. This is a reasonably good place to start with Cisco products. Cybery, I think they're called Cybery IT. Just double checking those. So this is another site that a lot of people use. And the reason I mention this one is they do a number of courses that are free and usable, particularly around the ATT micro attack framework. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of this framework, but it's a very useful framework to understand. It basically is a way to describe attack techniques, tactics, and procedures. And it's often used as a kind of unifying language. So I'm going to post this framework here for you. For those of you who also want to start looking at other frameworks that are quite useful to know, that often come up, there's the NIST frameworks, special publications like 853 that again are also worth looking into, understanding and reviewing. So just I'll post the link to that here as well. So yes, immersive labs, if you want to go down the penetration testing routes, is a really, really good lab environment to use. I think they offer free junior pen testing courses for experts, also for people who are neurodivergent, and for students. So if you are a part-time student and you have a .ac.uk email address, they will also offer a similar course to the one you get as a vet. Immersive labs are pretty good. The full paid course has a lot more. Sorry, the full paid platform has a lot more, but I think you need to be a company to apply for that. Their junior labs is literally that is a very, very junior introduction into pen testing, and it teaches you some of the baseline principles. But I think as a lab environment, it's really good. But in terms of learning, you might actually get more out of watching some of the pen test videos on YouTube to help you through it. But their methodology in terms of like trying to send you out to learn is a pretty good, and research the answers is a pretty good methodology. And it's the same methodology that a lot of other organizations use. If you want to have a paid for version of something similar, there's a site called Try Hack Me that I think offers some free courses potentially, and then otherwise it's about £8 a month, I think, or something like that to sign up for. And again, this is a really, really good one if you want to get some baseline skills, both in SOC environments or pen testing environments. But again, like with all of these courses, they teach you a baseline fundamental of how to use a tool or a concept, and then expect you to go out and basically research and practice by yourself.
Thank you, Kyne.
Which again is one of the key advantages of the IBM course that was mentioned earlier, because if you're interested in SIEM systems, for example, and being some kind of SOC analyst, it has a very, very good lab environment for that. And last but not least, I think worth mentioning is Microsoft do free introductory courses and certifications as well. I'm going to see if I can find the, give me one sec while I pull up the details for that. I don't have the details of the Microsoft one to hand. I thought I did, but it's actually on my personal computer, not the computer that I'm logged on from at the moment. If I send that through to Andrew or
myself, that would be great. Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
And you can distribute it out. It's basically what happens is you sign up. They do like a course webinar over 2 days that you attend, and you see how it's done. Then it gives you a free voucher to take their fundamental certifications, which are a good entry line as well, both for Microsoft Azure, Power Platforms, their security one, and there's another one I think that's worth contemplating. And then the last one to keep in mind is that the IC Squared, which I mentioned for the CISP, they're also doing an entry-level certification that is free for people in the UK at this point in time. And so, you know, you sign up, you get your free voucher, they have some training. It's a nice entry-level cert, and it's about equivalent to the CompTIA Security Plus certification. But don't get overly hung up on certifications, as I said. Often when you go for these jobs, it's not just the certification that might get you an interview. Know your stuff.
Fabulous, thank you. Really, really useful links there and useful information. Any other questions for Kyne from any of our learners who are still with us? Not saying anything else coming through. We shall pick those up if they do come through thereafter. I'll give individuals a couple more minutes to add any questions that they may have. Kyne, this has been a really, really useful conversation. It's been great of you. Thank you to sort of share your insights and your experiences and those links to our learners. So really, really good stuff. Anything else before we let you go?
No, I mean, keep in mind that I am floating around on email. I know some of you may have questions that pop up afterwards, or just looking for someone to help guide you through things. I mean, feel free to reach out to me. I'm approachable on LinkedIn. If you do send me a message on LinkedIn, I probably won't respond unless I know who you are. So drop me a message as to how you or what you want to talk about. Or otherwise, I think Andrew has my email address, and so does
Yes,
Annie. Drop them an email and they'll pass it across, and feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to field questions after the fact.
Lovely, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any sort of more questions coming through here. Kyne, was there anything else that you wanted sort of to pick up on the back of this, having sort of gone through this experience? Anything that you'd like to share with the learners, or if it is outside of that, then Andrew and I can pick up independently with you.
Yeah, I'd say cybersecurity in general as an industry is a nice place to work. However, when you do go into it, I mean, do keep a watch out for your own mental health. It can be quite stressful, particularly when you are working perhaps in a SOC environment, or you have responsibility and accountability for risks and failures of them, the controls on the risks. So whenever you approach this, approach it with a sense of humor, and don't be afraid to reach out to other people and ask questions, or get help when you need it. Often I've seen a lot of professionals where they have this habit of assuming they can't reach out because it's all quite scary. They're not sure what to do. They want to keep it contained, and often you see those people eventually burn out quite quickly. So just keep a watch on that yourself. If you do go into cybersecurity, yes, it can be stressful. Make sure you take the time and you have the coping mechanisms in place.
Would you suggest there are sort of channels or routes or communities, networks that they should, that you can recommend, or is it just building their own sort of network and support as they go through?
Yes, I mean, reach out first of all. When you go into cybersecurity, obviously make sure that the people that you are communicating with are people that you trust, particularly if you're dealing with any kind of sensitive information. So if it's sensitive information, obviously keep your networks within your organization. If it's more about general type thing, you're looking just for people who have shared similar experiences and it's a chance to talk and perhaps unload. Consider again, the cyber clusters are quite good because you might meet people who are in a similar situation. Otherwise, join one of the membership organizations like Osaka or CISSP. They often have local chapters that you can reach out to. Otherwise, build your own networks with friends and family that you can rely upon, and don't mind listening to you unload if necessary.
Fantastic, thank you.
And obviously, don't forget your own manager. That's what they're there for.
Brilliant. That's really, really useful. Any other questions before I let Kyne go? Kyne, this has been really, really brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to speak with us, speak to our learners. We will be sharing this recording through to the wider organisations. So what we will do is maybe if you get introductions from individuals that you're not sure about, you can always sort of come back to me if you want to reconcile who a particular individual is. In that respect, I'm more than happy to help in that. But thank you so much for your time. And we'll give you back a little bit of your afternoon. You're more than welcome to stay on if you wish, but I will probably just be handling queries from individuals now with regards to sort of going through the learning and going through the Coursera modules as we speak. So you're more than welcome to stay, but otherwise, if not, I will let you go.
Sure, no problem. Fantastic. And good luck with all your studies, everyone. And again, if you do have questions, don't be afraid to reach out, even if it's more just around, I don't understand a particular topic. What does this mean? I'm generally fairly happy to drop an email back when I have time.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll let you go. And if there are any other questions that come up as a result of this, then I will sort of ping them through to you in email and collate those and then send them out to the wider learners. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. The rest of the learners and who are participating in this call, you are more than welcome to stay on if you have any specific questions for me or for IBM, which I will field through. Otherwise, I will let you go and you'll get a little bit of your afternoon back. But yeah, more than happy to answer any questions or queries that you have at this point. If I think at this point you could probably stop the recording and then share the link with me, and then I will cascade that out to the wider team.
All right, that sounds good. I'll stop the recording then.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll wait and see if any questions pop up or